have Sammy Ndolo, who's the managing partner at the firm. He was previously a partner at Hamilton, Harrison and Matthews, and his practice focuses on corporate law, finance, projects and real estate. Shem Otanga and Njeri Wagacha joined the practice at the end of last year, having both worked at Anjawala and Kana. Shem focuses on IP, data protection, ICT, and Njeri focuses on corporate mergers, acquisitions and private equity. Sammy, Shem, Njeri, welcome to LGC Pulse. Let's hope we can get you all back on. Right, let's see. Oh, excellent. Okay, nothing like a bit of technological challenges to get the blood running. So welcome, gents and ladies. It's great to have you on the platform. I'm super excited about this interview because I'm very keen to learn more about your journey and just to hear about the wonderful work that you're doing. So why don't we kick off, Sammy, with you telling us about the firm. How old is the firm? How did you get started? And how did the partnership come together?
All right, thank you very much, Cynthia, and good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to having an engaging discussion with each and every one of you. So, Cynthia, how the firm started was, I would say, maybe quite providential, unexpected. You know, when I started off in my career as an advocate, as a lawyer, I never thought I would have my own law firm. But I think when the time came, it just felt right to start. And so I joined up with two other partners, and we started off the law firm about 3 years ago. So I would say it's been quite spontaneous and quite serendipitous, you know, and you know, we're quite happy about the growth and progress we've had so far.
And how many partners? You said you started with two other partners. So how many partners do you have now altogether, or how many people are in the partnership?
We're now five. We're now five partners. We started off as 3 partners.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
And so what is the overall vision or objective? And maybe this is a question for those of you that are newer to the firm, a bit of a test for you. But you know, what's the vision? What is it that you're doing that's different?
I'll answer that. I think that the vision is really to provide the best legal services that we can in a very modern way. I think, you know, maybe I would say Africa has been behind the curve in modernizing legal services. We still have a very old school view of how legal practice should be done. And what we're trying to say is that we're young lawyers coming together to give the best of the best in a modern environment. You know, it doesn't have to be stuffy. It can be quick, it can be efficient, and really that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And just, you touched on the point about being young. So if I may be as facetious as to ask, what's the average age amongst the partnership? What's the demographic?
I would say it's we're in the 35 to 40 bracket.
Very young.
So we're quite young. We're quite young.
Is that young?
No, I'm joking. I'm in the 35. I'm in that bracket, so I'm saying very young.
Well, personally, I'm in the 20 to 30 bracket. But
wow. Good stuff. So, I mean, tell me about the culture within the team. Obviously, given that, you know, you guys are fairly youthful, you've come from firms that are already doing really, really well and are well reputed within the legal market. What kind of culture are you building within your team?
Yeah, so Cynthia, the kind of culture we have is just a relaxed environment, very collegial, a lot of teamwork. I would like to think of it as a happy place to work, because if you spend a lot of your living life working, it needs to be a place that's nice and enjoyable. So that's what we try and achieve here. So a relaxed environment, but at the same time very serious in terms of what we do.
Yeah.
So, and then even in terms of our culture, it's, you know, we have a principle that we call PI, which is personal service, integrity, and excellence. And so we try and, you know, integrate that in all our actions and all our activities. But I would say it's just a nice, friendly place to be.
No, that's good. And so, you know, I know that you all came, as I mentioned, from well-known firms, well-established firms, you guys seem to have achieved quite a lot within a short space of time. Describe for those of us that are less familiar with the Kenyan legal, law firm universe, what does that look like? What is the scale, and where does Kieti fit in, given that you're a boutique firm?
Yeah, so I think Kenya is a former UK colony, and obviously we follow Commonwealth UK law in general. So the habits and the type of law firm that we have been used to in this market is very old school British type of law firm, where it's very hierarchical. It's a formal environment, and the work is partners down to juniors, so they're very used to that kind of structure. Of late, and as times have moved on, there are people who have gone to the UK, gone to the US, come back to Kenya, and developed a practice or try to modernize their practices. So where me and Shem have come, or where Sammy was before, are law firms that are in a transitional phase of delivering services at a higher standard in a modern type of way. And what we're doing, you can find a lawyer in Kenya. With lawyers are many. And of course, you can find a lawyer to do everything that you want. What the difference that we're trying to say is that if you want someone who has an exceptional skill, specific skill, understands, the UK, US, and African market, then you need to look for someone who is either dual qualified, which we are, has studied in the UK, which we all have, understands a different language. We have I speak French, and the other partners speak other languages as well, and so can offer a different type of service. And that's what we're trying to. That's how we're trying to differentiate ourselves in the Kenyan market.
Yeah, no, that's super. And are you finding that, that is what is drawing, clients to you? Are you hearing from clients that sort of that slightly different approach is unique in the market, or, what's the feedback from clients on that?
I think definitely if you can speak the client's language, they appreciate it. So it works to our advantage. But also I think it's the quality of the work, whatever happens, the quality of the work that you provide must be at a very high level. And that is what will keep the client coming back. And so I think what we have found is that the clients that do come to us are repeat clients, clients who understand that the work is of very good quality, and we can deliver it in a very efficient way. If it doesn't need to be, in a long drawn out memo, we can do it in an email. If it can be a telephone conversation, we're happy to have that. There are other ways of doing it rather than charging someone just to give that formality to the process. We need to move and be dynamic, as other industries have. And so we're finding that clients come to us because they like our service.
Yeah. No, that's super. Shem, let me come to you, because you've been fairly quiet so far. So, Njeri's talked about sort of the dynamism of your culture, and, sort of having a slightly different approach. I want to talk to you a bit about sort of day-to-day reality. So on your website, I know you guys describe yourselves as being critical thinkers, creative doers, client-focused. Those are great, snappy, impactful statements to make about a
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Tell me what that means in practice.
Yeah, so we like to think of ourselves as just that, critical thinkers, creative doers, and being client focused. And all these three aspects basically revolve around the premise that we are here to solve problems. We're here to try and bridge the gap between our clients and their organizational goals. So in terms of being critical thinkers, we understand that our clients come to us with problems that don't have easy solutions most of the time. Others, they would deal with them in-house, and therefore they come to us to purchase our capacity for critical thought. We look at things very objectively, and even on some occasions take a contrary position to what our client would like to achieve, just to see, what the opposing side, for example, if it's a dispute matter, what the opposing side would actually be bringing to the table in terms of counter arguments, and try and ensure that whatever solutions we present for our clients can stand up to the test of close scrutiny. So that's from a critical thinking perspective, just literally trying to make sure that we have a full understanding of what our clients want and how we can deliver it to them. In terms of creative doing, I'll speak mostly from my perspective. I deal with a lot of clients who come with new products that they want to introduce into their markets, innovative products, and they invariably come to us. Sometimes if those products are in the regulated spaces, they would come and require some sort of advice on whether the products are aligned with the law or not, whether they can roll them out as is, or if they need to tweak them one way or the other. Now, what they don't want to hear is that this is what the law says and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't launch this product. They want to hear this is what the law says. It's not necessarily in favor of what you want to do, but this is how this is what we think about how you can go about launching it in a manner that's compliant with the law. Or if perhaps it's not an issue of interpreting the law and you just need to tweak the product, then as creative doers, we need to be able to understand the client's goals, what they want to achieve with their product, and see how that end game can actually be achieved, and while still complying with the law, perhaps with a few tweaks here and there to the actual product. So you do require to have some understanding of the client's business and their products. And in terms of being client focused, well, it's just that the client is the reason why we exist. We're here to serve them. All our efforts are focused towards helping them achieve their goals. We're not just here to receive instructions and carry them out and then spit out an invoice and follow up with several emails, asking for payment. We want to see ourselves as more of partners, working with our clients towards achieving their goals rather than a mere service provider. So that's what we mean in a nutshell by being client focused, and that basically captures a bit of our ethos here at the firm.
Yeah, and just on that client focused point, Shem, how are you coping with the challenges of the pandemic? I mean, are you able to still, part of client focus is about client interaction and going to see people and, sit down with people. So how are you working that through, given that there are, I don't think you've got a severe lockdown in Nairobi necessarily, but there are certainly restrictions and people are being very cautious about meeting. So how are you able to further sort of client relationships and that kind of thing in view of everything that's happening in the world at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good thing that we have had, or rather we've built over the years, over the past couple of months. Sammy, I would say that he's built over the years, but for me, over the past couple of months that I've been here, a good rapport with my clients. I've been able to build relationships, able to reach out to them on the phone, have informal conversations. We've been able to meet as well because the restrictions aren't as tight here. We have had clients on occasion coming to our offices from time to time, especially new clients. The restrictions haven't been so tight, so that's been a good thing. We've definitely had to leverage quite a bit on technology, but we still have managed to maintain a decent level, a respectable level of personal interaction with our clients. So it hasn't been too much of a challenge. I would say that.
Okay. So one question that I definitely want to ask each of you is sort of, what have you gained or learned from the other firms or the various firms that you've worked at that have influenced what you do now, whether in terms of what you don't do or what you actually focus on? So I know two of you have come from Anjawala, a really well-known firm. Sam, you were a partner at Hamilton. So what have you? How has the past experience with these firms influenced how you operate in this firm that you're building? If we can start with you, Sammy.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. So I think for me, what I've learned a lot is just being able to understand the business of a law firm, how to manage, how to manage and to grow business as a law firm. I think I got a lot of insights on that. And then also, that drive to make sure that the work product is the very best that can be produced, to the best of your ability. I think that's also another thing that I would say, that I have a positive that I've picked up. Some downsides perhaps is maybe being more people-centric. I consciously try and ensure that is something I'm doing. Just to make sure that you understand you're working with people and they have lives beyond the law firm, beyond the office. So it's always good to understand what it is that they're involved in. And I think if you tap into that, I think it builds a much better atmosphere. Obviously, without being invasive or being nosy, but just being concerned, really, because these are colleagues and people you work with for years. I think those are the key things I would say.
Okay. And Njeri, what about you?
I'm going to start from when I was a trainee in London. And I think one of the most important things I learned was that, you need to take that opportunity. And I always tell all my mentees that take the opportunity to be a trainee, to learn everything that you can, because you can't send someone to do something that you can't do yourself. So I can bind, I can do copying, I can do stapling, I can do, all of the rudimentary things that you wouldn't think necessarily are legal skills. If you leave me in an office at 3 a.m., I'll still be able to document and bind it sufficiently well. So, and it's an opportunity, when you're a trainee, it's an opportunity for you to really do all of the things, so that if you're in the shoes of an associate sending someone to do something or asking them to do a task, you've been there. And I think Sammy and I both carry on that tradition now. Sammy was doing some forms yesterday, and he was saying, I need to test it out myself, so I know when I'm asking someone to do it, I've been there, I've done the painful process myself. And I think that's just also part of our firm ethos. We're not going to be those people who will, those partners who will just be telling you do something we have never done ourselves. We need to be as hands-on as our associates. The other thing I would say from all of the clients and all of my friends is from Anjoala, where I was before, is, Njeri, are you going to be doing the long hours that you were doing? Are you still doing the same hours that you did at Anjoala? Everyone has asked me the same question, and I would say the work ethic is something that I really cherish, and I learned a lot at Anjoala. So, and I'll carry that through, simply because of what Shem said, which is that we're trying to deliver a service to the best of our ability, and I'll do that wherever I am.
Yeah, that's great. And Shem, anything that you want to sort of share about learning?
I think perhaps I'd add something small in relation to organizational structure and market-facing interface rather. The other firms that I've worked for, Dentons and as Njeri said, Anjoala, have taken a regional complexion, and they've invested quite a bit into spreading their networks across the continent. HHM recently, well, not recently anymore, but a few years ago, I guess, linked up with Dentons. Take advantage of that regional and, in fact, international network. Anjoala is part of ALN. So I've seen the benefit, being part of these two institutions, of having a network that, sort of spreads beyond your own borders. And this becomes particularly important when you're dealing with international clients, or even local clients, increasingly who have, interests in more than one African country, beyond Kenya. So some clients would have operations here, but then also setting up in Uganda, Tanzania, etc. And invariably in-house counsel tend to look for, a one-stop shop, one person that will sort out their legal problems across the region. So being able to know lawyers in different jurisdictions and to work with them and to understand how they operate, and understand the quality of work that they deliver, so that you're then in turn able to turn to your clients and say, yes, I have the capacity across XYZ jurisdictions is critical. Increasingly becoming more and more important. Thanks to ILFA, I've got quite a few friends across the continent. Thank you very much, Cynthia. I've reached out to Nania in Ghana quite a bit. And Sammy has his own network as well, being an ILFA alumni. And Njeri has worked extensively with a number of lawyers in very many jurisdictions across the continent. So we have a very good network, and we're confident that we're able to provide pretty much seamless service across a number of key jurisdictions, at the very least, on the continent.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's obviously evident in the fact that you're, attracting this level of attention. I mean, that comes from having interesting and worthwhile networks that you can leverage. So let's talk a bit about technology, because I know we've touched on it a bit in the context of, client development and the realities of the pandemic. But for me, one of the things that caught my eye and was part of why, we even started having this discussion was because of the interesting things that you're doing. So Njeri, I know you do, your Njeri Talks, the podcast. Talk to me about the technology that you use, and what ways are you using tech innovation as part of the practice that you deliver now?
I think the first thing to say is that we're very fortunate in Kenya that the infrastructure has been there for a while for good internet service and good connection, phone connection, internet connection, all of those things. Connectivity has not been a problem. So actually in the pandemic, talking to people abroad has not been an issue at all. In fact, the Wi-Fi is sometimes better in Kenya than it is in other countries. So I think we've benefited from that a lot. From a perspective of communication, because really what has been lacking in the pandemic is the ability to see someone physically, is the ability to then communicate with them in other ways. So the podcast is really a way of engaging with lawyers in a way that you wouldn't we wouldn't be able to during the pandemic, and also to get to know someone on a level that you may not do so on a transactional basis. So just talking to them, being in the same room, or them being in another room, and learning about them is something that I think a lot of the audience has really appreciated, and I think we've gotten a lot of good feedback on that. For the work purposes, I think benefiting from SharePoint and cloud services or AI services has really been helpful in dealing with data rooms and sharing documentation. Recently, a client of mine has been using Google to everyone shares the same portal and works on the document at the same time. Those are things that we haven't really seen before. Before, it's been very much you track the document, send it across, and then the other person comes back with their track changes. We're seeing much more live review and ability to comment and seamlessly turn a document simultaneously with the other person. So there is a lot of technological innovation that is going on that will affect us, and will make sure that we're able to provide a service that is much more seamless, much more efficient and quick to meet clients' needs. Shem, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I'm Njeri, too humble to talk about your podcast. I'll do so on your behalf. I'm quite excited about it. Just in terms of having a client interface and really a societal interface, putting a human face to the practice of law. I think we've been able to leverage quite effectively over the past couple of months on tools that are available to the public generally, digital tools like social media, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, etc. The use of Njeri's podcast, for example, to address emerging issues. We've been able to host some excellent guests on the podcast, and to not just to discuss the technical aspects of the law or of whatever sectors the guests operate in, but generally also to have a look at them from a human perspective. What's their journey been like from a professional perspective? What hurdles have they faced? What advice would they give to professionals that are starting out their career, etc. And from the feedback, we think it's something that has been lacking in terms of the podcasts that are out there, because we as lawyers tend to really, hit the technical aspects of the law and say what the provisions of the law are and what is allowed and what's not. But I guess giving that within the context of, rather in a more palatable manner, I would say, has been useful. And is one of the ways we're leveraging on technology and the digital infrastructure around us to sort of just reach our audience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're all being very humble in terms of talking about the podcast, because you've had some amazing guests. I know the last guest was head of legal for Google. Is that right?
It's the next one.
Oh,
so the fourth episode is head of legal for Google. We've had some amazing guests, actually.
Yeah.
And people who are clients or who reached out to, who have really been willing to engage with their audience, really, because we're there to provide a platform for them. And really, for me, it's very interesting learning about how people have come to their legal careers, what they're doing in their work. And what Shem said is exactly that. Rather than having the cold, hard legal information on paper, getting it in a more palatable form, and understanding what fintech is, understanding how a PE transaction works when maybe you've been too intimidated by the subject, understanding how Google is using their platforms and data privacy issues. All of those things are really interesting when spoken about rather than perhaps when read.
No, brilliant stuff. So tell us, for anybody that doesn't know, tell us what the podcast is called and where they can get it, please.
Okay, so it's available on Apple, on Spotify, on LinkedIn, or on our link on our page on LinkedIn, at our website, on Anchor as well, and it's called @Njeri Talks.
Excellent.
Which is my name, Njeri.
I'm a big fan, so I've been listening in. Hence me being excited about the one that hasn't happened yet, because I saw that and I was like, yep, definitely tuning in for that stuff.
Thank you, Cynthia. We've had such good feedback. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. So let's talk. I mean, we've talked about a lot of positives, and I know, it isn't always positive. Sometimes this stuff is just hard work, right? You're being an entrepreneur, building a business from the ground up. So what has been the most challenging part of what you're doing so far? Tell us what's been really tough about being a startup. Sammy, if I can pick on you.
Yeah, sure. I think that maybe two things for me. I think the first one is just getting the right kind of people to join the firm. People who can see the vision, who can buy into the dream, and who understand that we're going somewhere. We are shooting for the moon, but we're building the rocket as we are taking off. So just getting someone to appreciate that and remain committed to that cause. I think that's the biggest challenge, because you find there's a huge disconnect. You find that the people that are very highly talented can be very impatient, and they are demanding the best right now. So getting that mix between the right talent versus someone who's committed and loyal has proved to be very, very difficult. Over time, obviously, we are finding it easier. I think we're also getting better at identifying the talent, which also helps. We are getting better at retaining the kind of talent we find. So I think maybe that is an initial problem, but I think it has been an acute one at the start. I think the other one is, like there's a proverb that says a good name is more desirable than riches, but you find that it's the reason that a good name is a good name because it takes time to build.
Yeah.
Right. So when you go out marketing and you're going out telling people, we can do this for you, we have these capabilities, you find that there's quite a bit of hesitation. You have to, provide a lot of reassurance, a lot of comfort to them that you will address their problems in the way that they expect them to be addressed. And you find that they are relying on not the firm as such, but the individuals within the firm to say, fine, it's a new name, but I know Sammy, I've known Sammy for 10 years, I know he'll come through, So that aspect as well, where you have to, put the name out there and grow the business, it can be at times frustrating because you want people not to ask, give us your referee from this country or that country, So I think those aspects, just building that name and making it a brand in the market, we've seen a lot of progress so far, and we are quite delighted that we go for a meeting and people say, "Oh, I've heard of you," So we're seeing a lot of that now, and obviously the work that we're doing as partners in Njeri's podcast, even discussing with you, Cynthia, is something that I think helps build that reputation that we are seeking within the market and also globally.
Yeah. And just, I guess, tied to that, what would you say that you wish you'd known before? What is it that you know now that you wish you'd known when you started?
I think maybe maybe I don't wish I knew, because if I did, maybe I wouldn't do it, But I think the key thing I know now is that it takes time. You just simply have to be patient. We have the benefit of youth, but also that comes with impatience. You want something to happen now because you're interpreting your energy and stamina as an indication of progress, But it's just knowing that, it takes time and you have to be patient. You have to plant the seed, water it, and walk away and come back and see the tree has grown, and just trusting the process, day in, day out, show up, do your work to the best, and come the next day. I think, had I known how long it takes, I'm not sure that it would be an easier decision. I think part of the reason that we started off, or perhaps fortunately, was that we were ignorant of the challenges involved.
Yeah.
But I think we've embraced them and we've enjoyed growing the farm. The thrill of the chase and the thrill of building something overrides those challenges any day.
Yeah. I mean, I think the same could be said of parenthood. If we all knew, those of us that are parents, if we knew what was involved, we may not go down that route. But it's worthwhile when you can see the product of the hard work. So I mean, you all cover varying but complementary practice areas. Are you able to tell us a little bit about the types of clients you work for, the industries or sectors that you're focused on? Shem and Njeri, it would be good to sort of hear from you, particularly given that you've just joined the practice. Obviously, there's something that has drawn you in. Who are you focusing on? What does your client? Who do your clients resemble? Who are your clients?
I would say that. I'll go.
Yeah.
I'd say that the beauty of working in M&A and PE is the opportunity to go into various sectors and then understand them very well as you're going into the transaction. So you may not know anything about, for example, I'm working for a client right now who's doing something very innovative in the oil and gas sector. I didn't know anything about how it works or what the product is and how it's going to be deployed. But learning about it and then being able to translate that into their documentation is really a thrill. So any industry that you get a chance to work in, you're willing to do it because you're going to learn a lot more about how it works and actually be then a specialist when the transaction closes. So I've done various industry sectors, but obviously a transaction comes up. I'm happy. I think it's something that as an M&A and PE lawyer, it's a thrill.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And Shem, do you want to add anything to that in terms of clients and industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Njeri is a good point. We tend to touch on quite a number of sectors and industries because of the nature of the clients that we act for from an M&A perspective. But, quite apart from that, we do have strong capacity in the natural resources and energy sector. We have a partner who's dedicated to servicing clients in that space. We have clients who operate in the banking and finance, and particularly fintech space. Sammy has done quite a bit of work in that area. I'm looking to move more into that as well now that I've joined the firm. We have some clients in the gaming sector as well, so betting companies. We have clients in the education sector, universities, local universities. Njeri, I believe, has acted for a local university, and I think she's still acting for them. I also have capacity within the retirement benefits space, and that's not something too many people know. In fact, we just recently won a proper mandate, let me put it that way, within
Yay.
that space. So I'm quite excited about really venturing there, because I believe there's lots of potential within that space, and it's a good starting point for expansion of my practice from my traditional IP data protection TMT background. Another sector I would say we have some clients in is the FMCG space, fast-moving consumer goods. That's what comes to mind at the moment. I may have missed one or two, Sammy and Njeri.
Well, it sounds like you're as busy as you can be. So no, great stuff. Let's talk a bit about sort of your marketing, because one of the things that I know our audience will be really curious to understand is, how have you achieved this? Like, you guys have been recognized not that long ago as the best boutique corporate law firm. Your name seems to pop up on various things. You seem to be punching well above your weight. So what is the go-to-market strategy? What are the key ingredients that make this thing run? What is it that you're doing that everybody else may not be doing? Talk to us about that. If we can start with you, Sammy.
So I think, thank you for that. I think the main thing I find is that you have to regularly reach out to your clients, but without being overbearing. So we do like regular client articles. We've been doing podcasts with Njeri now. We're also venturing into video. I think there's nothing as strange as seeing yourself as you talk. So I'm still experiencing that and getting used to seeing myself and hearing myself. I find it quite strange. But I understand even people in Hollywood have the same experience. So I comfort myself and say, I just need to get over that discomfort. But I mean, above everything, really, is just being able to provide a good service to the client. Being dependable, being reachable. We've had experiences where, the demographic in Kenya and most of East Africa, and largely Africa, really, is quite young. And so I've had a number of instances where a manager, a legal manager or head of legal has called and said, can you help me with this problem? I'm not even on the transaction, but they feel comfortable enough and they know it's okay to call me and just get a second view. And when you ask them, why did you call me? They'll be like, okay, because you're young and I've been seeing you around and, I thought you have expertise in this area and I can't call Mr. X, who is the partner on that deal. He's quite senior. So you find that, when you put out yourself and people understand the kind of work you do, on a regular basis, not too much, on a regular basis, and just being available and accessible. I think that for me, I've seen is the main, the main difference that's there. Yeah,
great stuff. And Njeri, do you want to add anything?
I think you have to be willing to give advice without expecting an instruction. You can add value. If someone asks you for advice, you can be willing to give that advice pro bono or even ad hoc advice to people in your network, and you find that they will then refer you to other people, simply because it's not necessarily about the instruction. The connection sometimes is more important than the instruction, and it can lead to a bigger or an instruction in the future. So I think just being accessible and willing to give a freebie once in a while is not a bad idea.
Yeah. And that actually leads sort of very nicely into my next question. So I know that you guys do a lot of work. You're not just giving one or two freebies. You know, you're actively supporting NGOs and social enterprises that are actively involved in social change. Talk to us about some of that. You know, why are you doing that, and what kind of work are you doing on that front?
Yeah, no, thanks, Cynthia. So we've been on a member of Trust Law. They're part of the Thomson Reuters group.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, I've been involved with them for more than 11 years now. So, and they tell me we're the most active law firm in this region.
Wow.
So I think for us, because as lawyers we can be extremely busy, so we may not have time to go and visit a home or give out some food or whatever. So what it is that we have to give is our time and our knowledge. And so I normally tell them that for us, that is our give back. That is our corporate social responsibility. And that's what we take it as a firm to be very active and to be, you know, we expect that everyone should participate in providing their time and their expertise. So we help a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organizations. We also help a lot of social enterprises, but primarily those that come through the Trust Law network. We also find that some of them end up being clients or they refer other people to us. So it's not just pro bono always, because it ultimately could translate into some form of business. And also they have a huge network within Africa and globally. So on some transactions, we actually do get to interact with international law firms and also law firms within Africa. So I think it's quite a good space that extends just beyond pro bono for us.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, and sort of hearing from Trust Law that you're, you know, one of the most active firms on that front must be incredibly encouraging. So I'm very conscious of time. I know I could speak to you guys all day long, but there's a couple more questions that I want to ask you, and then I want to see if our audience have any questions for you. So one of the last things I want to ask is, what's your ambition for 2021 in terms of the firm? And as part of that, what do you predict for legal services in Kenya over the next year? You know, so, you know, specifically to your firm, what are your hopes, but what do you imagine will happen in the Kenyan legal landscape over the next 9 months or 12 months? Shem, if we can start with you.
Sorry, I was muted. I think 2020 was a very challenging year, goes without saying. A lot of clients, a lot of organizations had plans for the year at the very outset, but they never got the opportunity to roll out. They had to hold back for obvious reasons, travel restrictions, COVID-19 containment measures quite significantly impacted commercial operations all over the world, including here in Kenya. But as time has gone by, as developments have occurred in terms of coming up with a vaccine, as countries have built up their capacity to manage the pandemic a bit better. I know things sort of go up and down, you know, you're in lockdown, out of lockdown, you know, numbers are down, numbers are up. But by and large, we are getting to understand the disease a bit better. And with that, our capacity to manage it is improving. And going along with that is that, you know, investor confidence is coming back. People a few months ago realized that, you know what, we have to get on with it and learn how to live with this and still move on with our commercial enterprise and our work. So I foresee that a lot of the work that was sort of held back in 2020 will sort of spring forth in 2021. I see a rebound coming. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball, But all factors remaining constant, and if things go as I hope they will, and the vaccine being disseminated across the world and all that, I certainly hope that there'll be a restoration of some semblance of normalcy, and we should see a rebound in work. That's a very optimistic view that I'm taking. Again, in terms of prediction for legal services, I would imagine that there would be an increased uptick in technology, building on what happened last year and with COVID, and people being forced to rely more on technology to build efficiency and competitiveness. Especially with growing interest in the Kenyan and East African market from international players. We've had Clyde & Co. setting up office a few months ago, or maybe a few weeks ago. ENS Africa came to Nairobi, perhaps in the last 2 years, I think. I forget the exact date. But I mean, local players are going to have to adopt tech more. And I think tech has become more palatable for law firms that had traditionally taken a more reserved, more brick and mortar approach towards their practice. So I see a rebound coming, and a bit more in terms of uptake of technology within the legal practice field.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Njeri, to you, same question.
I think for legal services, it's really about harmonizing, being a one-stop shop. If you're able to work in all jurisdictions, if you're able to provide a seamless service, clients are looking more towards that kind of service. So it will be important for law firms to be able to deliver not just in Kenya, but in East Africa, for example, and even in Africa as a whole. So working together. So collaborating with African law firms, being able to provide a seamless service will be the first thing. In terms of practice, it's a good time during economic downturn to amalgamate. So M&A should be busy. Private equity firms looking to make investments in Africa should be busy as well. Insolvency should be busy. A sector as well. Litigation is always up during times of distress, and so for lawyers, it's a perfect. Is it called a hunting ground? Is that the wrong word?
Yeah.
For work.
Yeah.
What will make the difference for law firms is really the ability to give a quality service, and not. And for clients to identify who can do the work for them and who can do it the best, and not just rely on word of mouth. Really look into who you're instructing for that particular instruction that you're looking for.
Yeah, great stuff. And Sammy, finally to you, same question.
Yes. I think 2021 presents a lot of opportunity. I'm always seeing the glass as half full. So, in addition to what Shem and Njeri have said, I think it just presents a lot of exciting opportunities for those who are resilient and willing to just get on with the business that they're doing. So I think it's not the time to retreat. It's not the time to hold back. I think instead, 2021 presents an opportunity for actually, a catalyst event for people to be able to grow their businesses, even despite, the circumstances that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, good stuff. So I want to thank you for those. Thank you for those responses. So I have one. Well, I'm going to try and combine it into one question. I'm going to ask you a question about looking back, and also, what would you do differently? Well, before I ask the question, I just want to invite those that are listening in. If you have questions, please do put them in the Q&A. And I will read them out once I've asked my final few questions. So what advice would you give your younger self? I mean, given that you're all fairly young, but your much younger self. What advice would you give? Let's start with Njeri.
I would say everything works out the way it should. I know that I was an extremely stressed out and worried undergraduate, masters, and law school student. When in that transition, when you're trying to look for a training contract, when you don't know where you're necessarily going next, when you're looking for your first job, or when you're a trainee in your first job, I think I would just say to relax, and everything works out how it should. And everything, it may not seem as if it's going the right way, but it will, and you just need to take the time.
Yeah, thank you. Sammy, what advice would you give a younger Sammy?
Yeah, perhaps not necessarily to myself, maybe just to mention something I tried to apply as a younger self, and I think it made a difference. I think I would say don't focus on the money, focus more on the learning. So I think the environment where you are being stretched intellectually, where you're growing as a lawyer, is more important. You can't put money on that. So I think, sometimes we're employers now, so we have that experience where people focus slightly more on the money, and I think it's not important. It's important, but not that important in relation to what you're getting out of the experience. I think would be my advice. The money comes eventually.
Shem?
I'd say be deliberate about overcoming your fears and your inhibitions when it comes to pursuing the things that you feel inclined to do, or things that you feel that you naturally gravitate towards within your career or whatever it is you're doing. I think fear holds us back quite a bit. Fear stops us from discovering the potential that is within us, because our potential is invariably drawn out when we step out of our comfort zone and take risks. But as I say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you're always restrained by your fear, you might never get to know who you truly are and what lies within you. So I'd definitely tell the younger Shem to be more deliberate about confronting fear and taking steps towards what he wants to do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, all of you. So we've had one question come through, which let me just read it out. So it says, as a startup law firm, what is the single thing that you are doing to keep growing? Sammy, if we can pick on you.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it's just showing up. Really, I think don't get comfortable. I think you find that every day you have to come out and do the best that you can. You cannot afford to rest on your laurels simply because you've landed on a panel or two. It's a constant effort to make sure that the law firm is growing sustainably and is able to reach the point where the roots are so developed that it can withstand anything that may confront it. So I think it's just that constant. You have to constantly show up. You may not see through the muck or through the smoke, but you just have to believe in your heart that what you set out to do is going to be achieved, and just be unrelenting. Keep pushing. I think is how I look at it.
Yeah. Shem and Njeri, do you want to add anything to that about growth?
I think it's about putting when we put our name out there, or when we say we're doing something like this webinar, or when we're doing the podcast, our name is behind it. And so it means something that we're doing it, and it's not just frivolous. It has to have meaning, and it has to have weight behind it, and that is backed up by our knowledge of what we can offer our clients. And so keeping on, as Sammy said, but keeping on knowing that what we're able to deliver is something quality, and believing in our ability to do that is what will distinguish us in the end.
Yeah, right. And Shem?
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, the legal profession is really the people business, right? You're in the business of interacting with people, and sometimes as an associate, you sort of lose sight of that because you have a steady flow of work coming to your desk, and you report really just to your partner, and you might have some client interaction, but there really isn't a great emphasis on you as an associate going out to win work. That, of course, is not the case for a partner. There's a very heavy responsibility for bringing in the work and keeping your team engaged. And you quickly discover that you've got to be a people person. People give work to lawyers that they know, that they trust, and they like. And that really is all about building a relationship with them, finding out what their needs are, anticipating their needs, supplementing, the work that you do for them with value-added, sort of service on top, and just going the extra mile for them to make sure that whenever they need legal service, you're the name that comes to mind. So that for me has been a key aspect. Relationship building has been a key aspect of being the go-to person, the go-to lawyer for my clients, and generally building the practice and growing the firm.
Yeah. We've had one more question, and I will make this the last question, but I think it's quite an interesting one, given how many comments we've made about sort of, being youthful and having a different approach. So the question is, why do you think that the legal market is not really user-friendly to young advocates? I would almost reframe that and say, do you think that the legal market is not, sort of welcoming to younger advocates?
Yeah, maybe if I can answer that to start. I think I started off to say that the focus should not be on the money, and it's because I understand how the market is at the moment. Obviously, people want to be paid well and paid what they think is right for them. But I think as the legal profession, it's inherently a difficult job, whether here or whether in London or wherever you are. It's tough. It's a stressful job. So I think maybe what younger lawyers could do is perhaps associate better and find a way of ensuring that either through the Law Society or through some other forum, that at least there are some benchmarks that are set. I think there have been efforts at the moment to set minimum rates that are paid to trainees and so on, and that I think goes a long way. But I think if I was a younger lawyer, I would be focusing more on the experience. What are you learning first and foremost? Because the sort of profession we have is a very long-term profession. You can work into it until you're quite old and gray. So I think it's just ensuring that you get your learning up front as opposed to the money. If you get both, well and good. But I think learning first. There's no money to that. You can't put money in it.
Yeah.
I think just to add on to that and to respond a bit differently is to say that there's a difference between youth and inexperience. And I think a lot of people look at young lawyers and think perhaps they don't have experience. And there's a traditional view that a good lawyer is one that has gray hair and has been in the profession for 100 years or plus. But really what we're trying to say as young lawyers is that we have experience and we are also willing to move with the times. So we're not going to be doing things the same way that an old school or older school lawyer will be doing things. And in fact, just to give you an example, when I was a trainee, one of the oldest partners at the firm that I was at was the one that was the technological most savvy one, and she knew that she had to keep up with the times, and she knew she had to be the person to go to and not be looked at as someone who could only operate a typewriter. And that's what we're trying to say. Youth does not equal experience. It means that we're willing to move with the times and provide a much more dynamic service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Shem, do you have any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, just something small to add. I'd say, I guess my word is to the more senior lawyers. I guess sometimes we forget where we were when we began this whole journey. and we were all green and had no experience, and were learning concepts for the very first time in chambers during our pupillage on some occasions. And some of us are fortunate to have very patient pupil masters and people who held us by the hand and showed us the ropes. So part of giving back is, sort of paying for that patience with the younger lawyers that fall in your hands, and understanding that perhaps there may be certain things that you'll need to extend grace towards when you see them arising. So I guess that would be my word to the more experienced lawyers, that lawyers are smart. No one gets to that to the bar without being smart. At least that's what I like to think. And patience sometimes does produce does bring out some very brilliant lawyers who might not have appeared to be brilliant from the word go. Some people just need a bit of confidence. And if you could nurture that, you'll be amazed at the sort of lawyers that will emerge. So that would be my word to the more senior lawyers.
Brilliant. I think that's an excellent place to round off this interview. I can't thank you enough, guys. It's been a real pleasure having you in the hot seat. I've certainly learned loads. I'm very excited about what I'm seeing with you. And, I really believe that the sky is the limit. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences and just making the time to join me for this interview. Thank you to all of our participants. We hope you've enjoyed learning about the firm. We'll be sending out a recorded version of the webinar for anybody that wasn't able to join, or in case people missed certain elements of it. So we'll round it off there. But thank you so much, Sammy, Shem, and Njeri. Have a fantastic afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Bye.
Thank you so much.